our offer actually is not being accepted.
I never want to move from this. I don't know why I'm about to cry.
You gotta make an offer tonight.
This house is home. Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you are new here, my name's Alora and this is my husband Kyle. We like to do sometimes these Wednesday videos outside of my normal Sunday videos. And I make all things motherhood, faith, and lifestyle. If any of those topics interest you, be sure to subscribe down below. In today's video, we will be talking about how we purchased our first house and how God gave us this house that we are currently in, how he just made a way for us to be able to buy this specific house. Before we moved into this house, we lived in a duplex and we were renting in that duplex.
So our rent situation that we were in was a really good one. And so that kind of made it feel like we had a lot of time to just kind of do our thing, save lots of money, and eventually get the house that we were hoping to get at some point. And it just kind of changed. You started to hear rumblings from the landlord that they were going to get rid of the duplex and just kind of be done with it. And so at that point when we had heard that, it wasn't that we had switched landlords yet. So we still had our situation, but we knew that it was only a matter of time. And it really just depended on when the landlord could get rid of their property for someone else to take over. And of course, with those kinds of unknowns, you really don't know if the next landlord is going to be as gracious or if they're going to be jacking up the price a lot more now that, you know, when they take over, they can kind of renew leases and renew agreements and all that sort of stuff. So that was a big motivator in seeing if we could even afford a house. At that point, we didn't really know if we could or not. It was just like trying to poke our heads in there and look around and see if we could afford anything. This was the time when the interest rates were really low and everybody seemed to be buying and that sort of thing. Everyone seemed to be selling as well. And so there was a lot of variety of houses out there. It wasn't just all expensive, although prices were going up at that time because of how many people were selling all the time. But there was a lot of variety. We kind of jumped the gun at first and I downloaded the realtor.com app on my phone and was just starting to flip through and made a request to see a particular house that we had saw in the town that we were living in at the time. Yeah. And the pictures looked fine. You know, it seemed like one where maybe we could, you know, do just a little bit of paint job, that sort of thing, and maybe it would work out well. So I just put in a request on the app for a realtor to come out and meet us there and kind of discuss the properties. We didn't even have a realtor yet, like somebody that we had partnered with. This was just kind of spur of the moment because, again, on my mind, we needed to start probably at least looking around. I hadn't even talked to the bank yet about how much we could even afford, really. It was just spur of the moment. So I had my dad come along with us to check out the house. And when we first came into the house, it didn't look like the pictures, really.
So like kind of putting it a little bit my point of view, the realtor pictures were beautiful. They were nice. The house looked perfect. And this reminded you, this is our first house that we saw and we were like, yeah, let's go check it out. Because the pictures made it look like it was this huge house, very minimal work that needed done. And I thought, wow, we found the house. This is easy. And then we arrived at the house. When I walked in, I thought, this does not look like the pictures. The pictures made every room look huge. You know, I went in with so much excitement and enthusiasm. And by the end of that showing, I left incredibly disappointed, and I had a lot of trust issues when it came to pictures on Realtor after that, because like it's like that picture could just be set up in a way to where it makes the room look nice when in reality it's not. And so I remember leaving so disappointed.
And so we kind of did the little bit of discussion at that house about what our plan was going forward, because remember, it was kind of spur of the moment. And so my dad was there, and he recommended a realtor that he had worked with in the past, that she was a very aggressive realtor and would be out really trying to make things happen and stuff like that. So he mentioned her, and so we got a hold of her, and then basically my dad also became sort of like a realtor number 2, if you want to think of it that way. He started looking at houses himself, and also he was always, for the most part, at every single house we visited at that point forward, being another
Very
set of
knowledgeable.
eyes, looking around to see what was wrong with the house, or what was something that was just a cosmetic that could be easily fixed, and all of that. So then our adventure began, and my dad told me I needed to meet with the bank to figure out what I could even afford, because at that point we really didn't even know what we could afford. I was kind of operating off of the realtor app, where it would make an estimate of how much the monthly payment probably would be, and we know that's not always the most accurate number that's going to be there. So I had to make a meeting with our bank, and we met with them, and the lady there, the loan officer there, talked with me, and they were able to get us a really good deal where we didn't even have to put any money down on the house, and on top of that, no PMI for it either. So I know, because a lot of times if you don't do 20% down, you have to do PMI with that. So this would be 0 down, no PMI. I'm not sure if other banks do that or not, but for us that sounded great, because that meant we could save all of our money that was on that would be for a down payment, and we could use it to fix up a house instead.
Yeah, and
that would help us
this
in the
was
future.
something that they were doing for just first-time home buyers. So see what your bank offers for first-time home buyers if you haven't purchased a house yet, because they might offer something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you don't know what, I mean, now national banks, they might be different, I don't know, but for our bank, that's what they were able to do, and it worked out well for us. So then we finally knew what our number was, which at that time I was a private school teacher, so I was making less than I'm making now, actually by quite a bit amount. And so it was going to be a tight budget, because remember, there was lots of selling going on at that time. Prices were going up, and interest rates were low and all that. So it was a big time buying market and everything.
We knew we were not going to get the 3-bed, 2-bath move-in ready house.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that the likelihood of that was very, very low. And so we figured we would most likely have to have a fixer-upper within our price range. And so we went into that fully expecting that would probably be our case, but we were very specific in the kind of fixer-upper that we wanted. We knew we were wanting a fixer-upper that was more cosmetic upgrades and not like foundational upgrades, because that's where it can get really expensive. That slimmed down our options even more after that.
So the house hunting really began after I was able to confirm my numbers of how much we could actually afford. And so the realtor, first name's Marcia, we'll just go with that. Marcia started getting us lots and lots of listings, and it seemed like every week we were seeing at least 3 houses or so. And so this started in probably mid-January, something like that. And we just kept on looking at house after house after house after house after house. And I think it was probably the end of February or so by the time we finally found a house that we were willing to put in an offer for.
Yeah.
Every house we had seen before that, there was always something wrong with it. Either the location was bad, there was one house that was right across the street from a junkyard. Then there were houses that just the numbers were bad, in the sense it was like a 2-bed, 1-bath, and we were looking for a 3-bed. Every house, there was something wrong with it that we felt was not something we could handle.
Right.
But eventually we found a house that we thought, okay, this house could work.
It had potential, and the things that could be done to it was manageable. It was actually on one of the bigger houses that we had looked at. It was 4-bedroom, 1-bath, which that was really nice to see. It was a pretty big house. We felt like we could add to it, in the sense that there was enough room in the house to where you could possibly add another bathroom, or you could make the kitchen a little bit bigger. And so there was things to it that were really big selling points. I will say for me, the house, I walked in, and I'm a very sentimental type person. I kind of go by emotions sometimes. And I remember walking into that house, and it just did not feel like home. Like, it checked off all of our boxes. It had so much potential. But at the same time, I had a lot of reservations when it came to this house. I couldn't tell you why. It just didn't feel like home. And so because it was a practical house, we decided to put in an offer on it, and the offer got accepted.
When the offer got accepted, we were pretty happy about that. And we started going into kind of looking into the future. We knew we probably wouldn't be able to do anything right away, but that we could make some fixes, and then in maybe a couple of years make some bigger changes. So we were talking about kitchen upgrades and all this kind of stuff, and then we get the news that our offer actually is not being accepted, and a different offer was getting accepted instead. And so that really threw us through a loop, because we had thought that everything was taken care of.
We had already signed papers.
Yeah.
Like, we were bound by contracts now, if I remember correctly.
I think we signed paperwork, but they ended up not signing or something.
Okay,
like
so
that.
we signed it, but they did. It still kind of felt like they did us dirty a little bit, because, you know, we were going through the process of buying it.
According to our realtor, their excuse was they had given a verbal acceptance, but they had not signed anything yet. And our realtor felt like that was not something that was very honorable to do, because I guess in her viewpoint, when you give a verbal acceptance, it's, you know, essentially an acceptance right there, and we're just going through the process of it. But their realtor did not think that way at all, and was, I guess, sticking to this idea that it had to be signed, and so they dropped us and picked somebody else up.
Yeah.
And so now we went from thinking we had a house to we don't have a house.
Don't have a house, and we have to keep looking. And that I will say, that was really frustrating for us, because it had already felt like such a long process. We had looked at so many houses, and none of them had that kind of potential. And so it was just really frustrating, because then we thought, man, like, when is this going to end? But then you also kind of go into it again with a lot of trust issues, because now you're like, well, what if we put in an offer and this happens again? It put a really bad taste in my mouth going forward looking for a house. It was not something that I enjoyed at all. And so our realtor continues giving us houses, and we keep going to these showings.
And in the background of us searching for a home, we get the word that for sure our landlord situation is going to be changing, and that they've got dates set up now to start the process of selling the duplex to the new landlord. And so now you got that pressure of, okay, we've started looking, but now there is a set deadline. There will be a change coming, and we only have so much time left. Otherwise, we're going to have to just be willing to deal with less than ideal situation renting until we can eventually find a place with hopefully a little bit more money. But you know, it's hard to know how much we would have been able to save if we had stayed at the duplex that we were at.
And while we were house hunting, as he had mentioned earlier, his dad kind of became our second realtor. And so he was sending us listings all the time. And there was this one listing of a house that was literally perfect. It checked off all the boxes. It was in an ideal location for me. There was a small town that just like, it's like a Hallmark town, and I wanted to live there so bad, but the amount of houses for sale in that specific location was very small, and they were either like junk or they were way out of our price range. There was this house in that Hallmark town that I'm talking about. This house was 3-bed, 1-bath in a perfect location. It definitely needed fixed up, but it was just cosmetics. Like, it was perfect.
Yeah, the house was contingent, meaning that they had already accepted the offer and they were going through the process. In fact, it switched to pending, I think, at one point as well. So it was like basically a done deal. I had seen it on Realtor, but I saw the, the status that it was in and didn't really give much thought about it. My dad had also seen it and saw that it was pretty much a done deal. So I guess in his side of the story, he said that he kind of filed it away and would periodically come back and look at it, but that, he assumed it was pretty much a done deal as well. And that was during that whole time of February where we were looking through tons of houses. We had made an offer on the house that fell through, and we were just doing, all the stuff and the whole backdrop that house is going through its closing and, finalizing with a new owner. Obviously, we couldn't buy it because it was already sold at that point.
Yeah.
So we kept on looking, and now it was going into March, and we had another house that was near where we were at, the duplex, that we thought about, checking out. And so we went to check that place out. As we were looking at that house, my dad had checked Realtor again and noticed that on that day, the house that we were talking about that was supposed to be closing, it must have fell through because it was back on the market. So he talked to Marcia and he was saying, hey, we gotta go over and look at that house tonight, right now. And she was telling him, no, that house is already, done, and it's a done deal. And he goes, no, it's not, go look. And so she looked and noticed it was open as well, and she made the call, and we went literally right from that flipper house to all the way to that house. And it was getting dark at that point, and we were came in and just looked around a little bit. And my dad said before we left, he said, you gotta make an offer tonight. Yeah. Because if you don't do it tonight, somebody's going to snatch this house up. And we followed my dad's lead on that. And within the weekend, the offer was accepted.
Yeah. And that house is the house that we have called home for almost 4 years now. We've brought 2 babies home here. This house feels like home. I've said many, many times in my videos that I never want to move from this. I don't know why I'm about to cry. This is making me emotional. But I have said many, many times that this house has just felt like home and that I want to live here forever. I don't know why I'm going to cry. This house is home.
Yeah, it's definitely has a lot of history in 4 years. That's for sure. So it's got, it's got a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears put into it. And then, of course, the history of 2 kids. And inevitably, our third one will also be in here, too. So.
I'm not pregnant.
Yeah.
I'm not pregnant.
Well, yeah, obviously. But inevitably, it'll happen. So we're not planning on leaving this house anytime soon. But yeah, it's just amazing how it came together so quickly when it felt like there was, we weren't having any luck at all. And then it just popped up right there and it was accepted right away. And yeah, it took a lot of work. And I was kind of leery at first because we had a little bit of an indoor water feature in one of the bedrooms. There was a hole in the roof. The water was coming in but my dad was like, oh, we can fix it. You and I will get up on the roof and tear it out and put new board in, which is exactly what we did.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot of family help in getting this thing put together, which of course we'll talk about that more than likely in another video. In fact, we already have a video out talking about the house if you haven't seen it already yet. But
it's our small house tour. But yeah, that was filmed quite a while ago. But there's so much more detail in terms of the remodel that we can definitely share in a separate video. And just and also we had to do it on a budget, obviously. So there might be some good tips in that video for you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it wouldn't have happened without God being there to help work that through and get us to where we need to go, and just the perfect timing of it all, because by the time we had closed on this house, We were having to move out of the other house, or the duplex, because it had switched owners. It just all worked out perfectly for us in that period of time. So
yeah,
it was pretty amazing.
It explained so much as to why our offer on that first house got shut down. And like, I'm just so grateful God closed that door, because it opened the door for this one. And this one has been such a blessing for us.
Yeah, that is a good point though, that, you know, sometimes you have to be thankful for the things that close, you know. It didn't feel great at the time. We felt like we were getting robbed and we were, you know, being mistreated and everything. But in the grand scheme of things, looking back, we got, in my opinion, a better house for cheaper than the one that we were going to get. And it was easier to fix up compared to the one that we were wanting to get.
Kind of another part of this testimony of the house that, you know, this house that God gave us. I'm a protective mama, and so I look at the registry often to see kind of what's in our area. And actually the house, the street that the house was on, had someone on the registry living on that street. And I know as a mom that, and just as a woman, that would have made me so uncomfortable. And maybe that was part of my reservation. I just, you know, didn't know it yet. God gives us that discernment sometimes, but that's also kind of part of that testimony, is the fact that this house is not near someone like that. It's actually, our house is very close to a school.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing, because those kinds of people can't even live where we're at right now. Yeah. So it's just, it's just, everything worked out the way God intended it. And we only saw just a little bit, and now we see the full picture. And it was just God's hand every step of the way. That
is pretty much the story of how we got our house, going from not thinking about getting a house to ended up getting one. So
yeah, that is our little God story. That's how God moved in our lives and provided a way when sometimes it felt like there was absolutely no way. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video and for hearing our story. And if you have a God story in your life that you'd like to share in the comments below, we'd love to hear it. Don't forget to like this video on your way out, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.